Hey guys, it's Jeremy here on Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. What we have today, guys, is a ranking of the albums video for the mighty Slayer. It's one of those bands you have to yell it like that or it doesn't work. Everyone knows fucking Slayer, one of the greatest metal bands of all time. And I was really pumped to do the rating for these guys. It took a lot of, a lot of re-listening, checking out old albums, kind of putting them in the right place. The top half I had pretty figured out, as well as the bottom half, but kind of figuring them out within those like 5 or 6 albums on either end was a little difficult. My top 2 albums were kind of locked in for sure, and then the rest were kind of, and the bottom 2 were for sure were locked in. But outside of those, in the middle, was kind of hard to put them in the right place, but I figured it out, and let's jump right in. So at number 12, I have Dollar Ballas and Musica. This is the one album that they kind of changed their sound. I think they tried to follow the trend for the one time in their career. It definitely had a more nu metal sound to it. Definitely different guitar tone, more mid-pace stuff, not as frantic and fast as we all love Slayer to be. This was just a miss in my opinion. Not the worst album I've ever heard in my life, but it's not that great, and it was easily my worst Slayer album. At number 11, I have Undisputed Attitude. This is their 7th studio album. This is primarily a covers record of hardcore punk covers. I think there's only one original track on here, which I wasn't really a big fan of. And I this didn't hit for me right. I like the songs from the original artist, but the covers in this just didn't quite hit for me the right way. I don't want to hear Slayer doing 90% covers. I'd rather have new material from them personally. And like I said, the one new song that they did release on this album, I wasn't a huge fan of, so I'll just leave it at that. And at number 9, I have their 9th studio album, God Hates Us All. This might be a little bit higher for other people. I just didn't really connect with this album as much. Really love the fucking title track, though. It's amazing. This still has a little bit of that nu metal sound, but they kind of started getting away from it again. Pretty solid album, but again, not one I go back to quite as much. I just love the title track, and the rest of the album is just pretty solid, but nothing amazing. And at number 9, I have their last album, the 12th studio album, Repentless. I think this is an underrated album. I think it's pretty solid. Kind of goes back to their older sounding stuff. Really solid tracks on this, pretty solid all the way through. Just a great modern thrash album. Nothing that's going to blow your mind, but it's really fun to listen to. Still aggressive and heavy. Get your head banging. Just a really good album. At number 8, I have Divine Intervention, their 6th studio album from 1994. Pretty solid album. Really like this album a lot. With songs like Ditto Head, Sex Murder Art, Circle of Beliefs. Just top to bottom, pretty solid album. We'll still listen to this a fair amount. But still a little bit lower on the list compared to some other stuff, but pretty solid album nonetheless. And at number 7, I have World Painted Blood, a very underrated album in my opinion. I really like this album a lot. It's their 11th studio album. The title track is really killer. I just really like this album. It's really thrashy. Snuff is really good on this album too. Human Strain. Unit 731, just a really solid album. I think it should get more love than it does, and that's why it's a little bit higher on my list. At number 6, I have Christ Illusion. This is their attempt at making Rain and Blood Part 2, in my opinion. They tried to capture that ferocity and the ferociousness of Rain and Blood, but they didn't quite hit the same. Songs aren't quite as good, but still a really strong album, very aggressive, very heavy. And I still like it a lot. Eyes of the Insane, Jihad is a good one as well. Catalyst, some really good stuff on this album to check out. And definitely not one to sleep on. At number 5, this is where we kind of get into the really cream of the crop in my opinion. I have South of Heaven. Might be a little bit higher on some people's list, but it's here for me. This is their 4th studio album following up Rain and Blood. Almost impossible to follow up Rain and Blood no matter what you do. is never going to compare, in my opinion. They changed their sound on this one a lot. This album definitely stands out in their catalog as something a little bit different sounding. It's more melodic. It's got more of a doomy kind of vibe to it. Not quite as fast and thrashy. It's more mid-paced. But really good album. Sounds are amazing. The title track is one of their best songs ever. I love it. And Ghost of War is really good. And yeah, just some really good stuff on this album. Really, really good. At number 4, I have their debut, Show No Mercy. Really strong debut album. It has a lot of new wave of British heavy metal vibes on it, even though it's a thrash album. It's got that kind of melodicness to it in the undertones. Really killer stuff though. Really raw, really fast and aggressive. Black Magic is one of Slayer's best songs. I love that song. The Antichrist is really good. Let me see here. Tormentor is really good on this album too. The title track, Show No Mercy. Die by the Sword. Like, it's just really good top to bottom. Really killer debut. Really, really good stuff. At number 3, I have Seasons in the Abyss. Really good album. A little bit different sounding. It's got some mid-paced stuff on there as well. But War Ensemble is a fucking beast of a track. It's definitely was a concert, like a live track regular for them. Really killer song. Dead Skin Mask is a killer song on here as well. Blood Red and the title track, Season in the Abyss, is a fucking amazing song. Just a really, really classic album, Slayer songs on this one. And yeah, it had to make the top 3 for me. And number 2, my top 2 are always my number 2. They kind of were close together. For the most part, my number 1's always number 1, but my number 2 album is slowly creeping up and might take it over soon. But number 2, I have Hell Awaits, their second studio album. This album is just raw. It sounds evil. It sounds dirgy. The production is perfect for it. The production is really kind of grimy and dirgy sounding. Matches the music perfectly. Sounds like it's produced and sounds like hell. Just super evil and aggressive sounding. With the title track has the best opener I've ever heard, with that kind of a whisper effect, and it bangs into the riff. Killer song. One of my favorites for sure. And of course, guys, at number 1, it has to be Rain and Blood, arguably the best thrash metal album of all time. 29 minutes of fury and blistering speed. Some of their most iconic songs of all time, with Angel of Death, Altars of Sacrifice, and of course the title track, Rain and Blood. Jesus Saves, Necrophobic, like just amazing songs in here, concert staples. And I was lucky enough to see Slayer quite a few times, and they played a lot of these songs every show, and just amazing live. The one thing I didn't include on here, because these lists are primarily studio albums, so I didn't put Haunting the Chapel EP. I'm not a big EP guy in general. I don't really buy them that much, but Haunting the Chapel is arguably my favorite EP of all time. It's just amazing. It's just a ridiculous EP. If you don't own it, definitely pick it up. It's amazing and killer. So let me know down below, guys, what your list would be for Slayer, what your order would be, what's your favorite, or maybe top 5. And I appreciate you guys watching. If you're new to the channel, definitely check out my other ranking albums. I've done like Metallica, Merciful Fate, who else? Havoc. I've done some other bands as well. I'm kind of starting to do more of these over time. And let me know what you think, guys, down below. And until next time, guys, keep it metal.